Okay, hello. This is going to be just a little, not really a tutorial, maybe a little bitty bit of one, but basically it's going to be a walkthrough of what Marvelous Designer is. It's becoming quite popular with a lot of SL creators. Um, it's really simple and easy to use. How you bring it from Marvelous Designer into Second Life, there's a few steps that you need to take in order to do it properly, and we'll go over some of those steps later on. But like I said, right now, for those of you that don't know what Marvelous Designer is yet, or if you've got it and you just want to start experimenting, there is a demo for 15 days that you can download as well. So you can experiment with that. But let's go over briefly some of the basic ideas of what you can do here. Well, the first thing is we have an avatar on the screen with an outfit, and we're going to actually remove this outfit and remove this avatar, and we're going to bring in an SL avatar so that we can do this right from the beginning. In order to do that, it's really simple. This is the outfit that comes with it, and we're going to simply go to File and choose New Garment. Don't worry about it disappearing. It's always going to be there every time you open up Marvelous Designer. Also, this avatar will as well, but this avatar really doesn't fit the SL avatar, and we're going to go into that later on in another video. But basically, you see the shape of her is not a T pose. Her arms are down, her legs are open, and this isn't how our avatars actually start out inside of Second Life. So we're going to get rid of her for now, and I'm going to go to File, Import, OBJ. Now the OBJ that I'm going to use is just going to be the female default one. So I'll go ahead and click Open. On this load window, all we need to do is make sure that we do load it as an avatar, which is set by default, and we're going to change the scale all the way here to meters, which is this M on the bottom, and then simply click OK. And you'll see that this is the SL avatar that comes in, and we're all familiar with that. You can also see that her direct shape is displayed here in the silhouette. And what these two windows are is this is where we're going to build our pattern. This is where we'll make the pieces. And on this side is where we'll see those pieces. We can arrange them around the avatar, and then we can simulate them. And when we simulate them, they fall like fabric, just like a piece of clothing would that you would put on your own self. So let's go ahead and just see a little bit more about the interface, just a little, and we'll get into making something. So above the pattern window here, you'll see a bunch of buttons, and these all relate directly to creating things in your pattern. The shapes, internal lines, holes, all kinds of things where you can really tweak your outfit, but this is the workshop of it all. Over here is the 3D view, and this of course is where you're gonna, like I said, fit your pieces around the avatar and simulate it. Also, to see around, using your right mouse button in this window, you can orbit the avatar, you can look around it, and with your middle mouse button, you can pan, so you can push the avatar up and down and sideways. And in this one, you can only use your middle mouse to pan. You of course cannot cam in this one because this is 2D, this is 3D. Alright, we're not going to worry about these buttons right here right now, but do know that they have ways for you to interact with your avatar a bit. Above here though, we have some more buttons, and these ones directly relate to working with the avatar in here. On the top, a bunch of more settings. A lot of them you won't really need to go to. The things that you will need up in these windows are generally here in these button panels. So we'll concentrate on using these. There is one thing up here that you're going to want to go to, and that's the environment button. And go down to Gizmo, and you're going to change yours to world coordinate. And I'll change it back uh, to the default screen one later on, just so you can see the difference in it. So let's go ahead and I'll explain some of the buttons we're using as we use them. The first one we're going to use is called Create a Polygon. And you can see with the hover text that the shortcut key is H. And so we can click on this, and what we do is left mouse click, and it places a point for us. If we move our mouse, we'll see an edge. And so this is like the edge of your fabric, the outline of your pattern. If you hold Shift while moving this around, you'll see that you can constrain it to 45-degree angles all the way around. So you can make a straight line going across here, and this might be the shoulder of one side of her shirt. We'll hold Shift and click on the other side of her neck, and that will create the neck opening in a moment. Holding Shift, I can left mouse click again to create the other shoulder. So fairly easy, right? I'll come down here and I will click a spot for her arm opening. Come down for the bottom of the shirt, holding Shift again, and over, and then up. And these may not be exactly precise right now, but we're just taking a peek at how it works. For the last point, you want to go over the very first one and left mouse click. Your pattern turns yellow when it's completed. So I'm going to go ahead and move this over for a moment. So this is the front of her shirt. Before we go on to make the back of it, we're going to create some curves in here. Now, the reason we're going to create the curves before we copy this or make the back piece is because we will copy this, and the copy of this will be matching this one perfectly. So if we go up to this button here, this is called Edit Curvature. And basically, I think that this is more like create a curvature, because if you go ahead and click on the line somewhere with your left mouse button and pull, you'll see you can create a curve with that. And the button next to it is a good one. It's called Edit Curve Point. And so with this one, you can click on different areas of the curve that you've already made to get a more defined shape, a shape closer to what you want. We're not going to go there just yet. We'll stick with the Edit Curvature button, and we'll create some here around her arms, just to give a little bit of a curve there. Now, this piece we're going to duplicate. So what we need to do is go up to the Edit Pattern button. When we click on that and click inside the pattern, we can use Control-C to copy it, Control-V to paste it, and as I hold Shift, I can pull that to the side. And there it is. So we have our front and we have our back. Now I want to try to explain something here. When you're looking at these pieces in the 3D view, imagine that they're on a table in front of you, laying down, and you see the fabric side of them. Well, the underside you don't see because mesh is, of course, only one-sided. In this window, we can right-click on this piece, and we can choose Flip Horizontally. Now, not much has changed, but the shape is reversed now. The actual piece has been flipped over. But even though the piece has been flipped over, the fabric is still coming out the top side. And so when we take this back into our 3D window and we flip it a second time, it will flip both the shape and the sides of the side with the fabric will also be flipped as well. So those are our two pattern pieces. Let's go ahead and create one more before we start sewing things. I'm going to choose the second button up here, which is create a rectangle. I can come in here and I can left mouse click and I can pull out a rectangle any size that I want. This one again, if I click on the Edit Pattern button, I can click in it Do Control C to copy, Control V to paste, hold my shift, and move it to the side. I'm going to right click and flip this one horizontally as well. Again, you really can't see anything that has happened, but it has been changed. Now, after we get our pattern pieces made, we need to sew them. So up here we have a few sewing machine choices. The first one we'll look at in a moment. The second one here with the solid or the straight green line underneath it, this is called segment sewing, and it simply just sews two edges together. There's one small trick to sewing edges. I know that, well, from experience, that this outside edge is actually going to get sewn to this outside edge, because when I flip this around in the next window, this edge will be behind this one. So I'm going to click here on this one, with my sewing machine selected. Before I click though, do you see this little extended line? This is called a notch. And so this notch is basically put, let's say, where the fabric starts going through the machine on this side. And so when I click here, or I can even do it down here if I want, but you have to imagine that whatever two sides you're going to sew together, they have to have their notches in the places where they would meet together in the sewing machine. I hope that made sense. So your notches need to match up, and I click there. This represents my threads. They're connecting this edge to this edge. The notches that match mean that the top ends here are going to be placed together and sewn. Now, if I do it differently here, and I'm going to show you this example. So if I click here, and I come to sew it to this edge, and I have that notch there, sometimes they can be crossed in your pattern window. So just because it has a cross doesn't mean it's wrong. Although this one is, I'll show you how we can fix that, and I'll show you what that means in a moment. So I have my top side sewn. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew my bottom sides together. And all I'm doing is hovering near it, left mouse clicking, going to the one it is matched up with, hovering again, and left mouse clicking. That was easy enough. Let's do the front top to the front bottom, and the back top to the back bottom. The last thing left is doing the shoulders. So I know that this edge matches this edge. So I'll put my notch over here on the outside of this seam, again on the outside of this seam to match it. I'll do it on the outside of this one and this one to match those as well. So that's fairly easy, right? Now I'm going to come up here, and there's this button called the sync button. And the sync button takes whatever's been done in this window and it places it in this window. So when I click sync, you'll see that my pieces are now in this window. Now I need to just simply left click on one of these, and I get this gizmo. This gizmo is the one that I changed. As I move right now, you can see that that gizmo works a lot like the ones in Second Life 2 does. But the one that happens by default is the screen one. And you'll see that as I change my view, that gizmo changes. And that makes it really hard to move pieces around. So we like to go to Gizmo and keep it set to world coordinates. You will have to do that each time you come into your Marvelous Designer. So with the first piece selected, I can move it, or I can hold my shift button and left click on the lower one. When I select both of these, you'll notice the gizmo's gone away. Don't worry about it. Simply click one of the pieces again, and now they're both selected and the gizmos appeared. I can use my right mouse button to cam around, hover over the blue arrow here, and pull these pieces in the back. Now, what you don't really see too well possibly is that these sides are white. Do you see that? And these sides are white. This is the color of the basic fabric that Marvelous Designer uses. You'll notice on the back, not significantly noticeable at this point, these are gray. They're not white. These are the insides. Now, you'll see that when I brought them in, the back pieces had the fabric on the front side. That's why I flipped them over. So now what this really is that the fabric is actually on the reverse side, the back side of the back pieces. So I'm going to click on these with my right mouse button, and I can choose flip horizontally again. Now the white one is on the outside, as it should be, facing away from the body. Now all these lines that we did for sewing, you can now see that those are actually threads. And do you see the one that I did differently, where I made the notches go in the wrong direction? They're twisted here. Not a big deal. We can fix this easily. So here we go around this side, and the shoulders, they all look good. So let's go ahead and look at this first little sewing machine. This is Edit Seam Lines. So if I choose that, and I come down to this seam that's wrong, I can right mouse click, and I can choose Reverse Seam Line. And that automatically changes it. That now puts the notches in coordinating places on here. So I'm just going to go ahead and move these pattern pieces a little closer to my avatar, like this, and we're ready. So now when I go ahead and I hit the simulate button, and it's this big arrow here, I can go ahead and click it, and this will simulate. Before I do that though, you may have noticed these little blue dots showing up. Well, these are actually really pretty handy. If you've been flipping pieces around and you have lots of pieces to work with, you may not know exactly where to sew them in this window. You know, like, how do you know that this edge goes to that edge? Well, after you get your pieces in place, you don't have to actually sew them first. You can put them in place first, and then if you click on this edge, let's say, well, I don't know where this edge gets connected to, right? So let me click off of the scene first. Click here, and it's this edge, and it shows you on this one. Alright, now I want to sew that to this edge right there. So I hold shift and I click, and now I can see that these two edges go together. So that's a pretty handy little thing sometimes. With my pieces all done, I click the simulate button, and there I have my dress. Now that looks pretty bad, and one of the reasons that this here has happened is because I started to simulate it when the pieces were too far away from the avatar, and these pieces went together faster than they wrapped around the avatar. So that's not a big deal either. We can fix that. I'm going to turn the sync button or the simulate button off, and I'm going to choose this one right here. This is rearrange all patterns. So when I click on this, all these pieces will go back into the place they were just before I simulated. And there. Now, how you can avoid that happening, and you see how these pieces are fairly close, right? I can move this one a little closer. But another thing that really helps with this is when we move them up a little bit. We give these shoulders to come together a chance before they fall through the actual avatar. And so now, when I simulate, I get a much better fit. Now this dress still isn't perfect, so let me show you some of the things that we can still do. Well, first of all, let's see. We've got this coming into the shoulders here, so that's not exactly right. Let me go ahead and push this down. With the simulate button on, you can actually manipulate this dress. You can see it's hanging rather low, it's pulling down, and it's causing it to go in the arms here. So we just click with our left mouse button and pull. We can pull that up the avatar. We can get it in a better place if we want to. Okay, so that's pretty good. I've got it out of her shoulders. Now, you can see here that it's actually going through the avatar a tiny bit. Not too bad though. That's okay. We can deal with that. But, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, gosh, that top is awful long to go with her skirt. I might want this to be a little shorter. Well, if we click on the edit pattern button, and because the simulate is on, we have to do this slowly. Click on both the edge once of the front, shift, click on the edge of the back once, and we're going to use our up arrow key. So just tap it one time and it moves it up a little bit. Again, a little more. And as you can tell, I'm letting it simulate all the way through before I click again. If you do this too fast, you can ruin the clothing, especially if you have more complex pieces going on. So here we go. I think that's a little bit better for her top length, don't you? Let me turn around. And it's fitting her a little bit nice. Now, this here, you see that that's not curving into her body very well. So let's just go ahead and tug that up a little bit. Maybe tug it up a little bit over here. Tug it back down. Sometimes you can get carried away with the tugging, huh? I'm going to work out some of these wrinkles. I don't care to have too many wrinkles in the clothing. Okay, so now let's see, what do we have? Not too bad. Let me pull these out a little bit. See if we can work those away. Those little bits really aren't going to matter when we get it to blender. So there we go. Also, you can see that her shirt's pulling away from her breast a little bit. And the reason that this happens is because when we draw it, we're drawing it over a flat shape. When we bring it in this window, it's got to fit over all the curves. So sometimes even just a small curve like this is emphasized in this window. So I'm going to click on the Edit Curvature button. I'll click back on this and maybe I'll adjust it a little bit. And I will adjust the other ones as well. Just a little, not too much. And now that's a little bit better. We're getting there. And now that I've fixed it, I'm not sure if I like the fact that this is so high up. So I'll click this one more time. I'll nudge it down just a few. Alright, that's a little bit better. And now what we can also do is, what if we were to, let's say, take these, and I'm going to turn this off for a moment. Simulate off and the sync off. Now I can grab these, this and this one, and holding the shift button, I can make those much shorter. Now when I hit sync it and simulate it, I have a little band to her shirt there. So that's kind of cool. I'll turn the simulate off and the sync off. Now let me create a rectangle, and maybe I'll just make them about the same length as those ones. And I will copy and paste this one to the other side, and I'll flip it horizontally. Create another rectangle like this, and I will copy and paste it and shift hold it to the other side, and I will flip it horizontally. Use my sewing to sew my pieces together, and these will be just like the top was, where the insides match and the outsides go together. Remember to have your simulate turned off, because when you're bringing in new pieces, if simulate was on before you sync it, they're going to just fall to the floor. So let me go ahead and sync it. I will select these two pieces, and I will flip them horizontally, and clicking on them again, I can now bring them back behind the avatar. I'm going to pull these upward like that, and a little bit closer to her. And I'll pull these up a little bit and also bring them closer to her. And I think I'm ready to hit the simulate button. There, and that turned out pretty well. So let's take a look at what we have here. Alright, well, we got this hanging a little bit in the low side here. And I think I'm freezing up. It's not letting me grab it at the moment. Here we go. And let me come around this side and pull it up a little. Now you can see that her waistband's a little bit big for her, right? It's a little bit bigger than we need it to be. So this is the back one, and that is this one. So with my simulate on, I'm going to select the back, and I will click on one edge and use my arrow to nudge it over a number of times, and I'll count them. So maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll click on this one, and I'll use the other arrow. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that gives me a little bit of a better fit there on the skirt on the back. So that is the beginnings of an outfit here in Marvelous Designer, and this is just, really something basic that you can do and try and see that you can make an outfit in absolutely no time. Let me go ahead and turn simulate off and sync off, and I'll show you how to export this. So I'm going to go to File, and I'll go to Export, and I'll choose OBJ. I'll go ahead and just name this two-piece dress, and click Save. And when I save it, you'll see I get this dialog box. This dialog box, we want to make sure that in the Select All area, it's okay to have Select All on, except we don't want the OBJ avatar shape. We do not want this. Single object is good. We want it unwelded, and that's a whole other class, but really you want it unwelded. And thin is good. Thick actually adds a back to it, so we don't want that. Not really for weight painting. We can do the solidify modifier in Blender. And unified UV coordinates is really handy for a lot of reasons. I personally like it for the Maya. That's something that you need to have done. I probably shouldn't have said that about the Maya, but that's another thing as well. And then I'm going to change the scale again. Remember, I changed the scale of the avatar coming in, so I need to change the scale of the clothing going out. With those done, I simply click OK. And now I have an OBJ file saved that I can take into Blender and work with it. So I've done the clothing modeling here, and I'll do the rigging and weight painting inside of Blender. Well, I hope you like this, and go try it out on the demo or get started in Marvelous Designer and see how easy and fun this can be. I should fix that dress a little. All right.